Welcome to the Serbian Football Show. This is your host, Milos speaking. Thank you for joining us again this week. We are back, and we're going to be doing this every week. So thank you for listening last week, and we're happy that you're here this week. Please follow us on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel now that has a video version of the podcast at Serbian Footy Show on YouTube, and then also on SoundCloud, the audio version at the Serbian Footy Show as well. And as always, follow us on Twitter at Serbian Footy. Trying to get to 20,000 followers, so if you don't follow, please click the follow so we can get there. This week I'm joined by a couple of special guests. First we have a returning member to the podcast all the way from Belgrade, Alexa. Alexa, how are you doing tonight?
Good evening, boys. I'm doing fantastically well. The fact that I'm back makes me very happy. And I just want to wish you guys and all our listeners a lot of health and luck amidst these very chaotic and difficult times. And hopefully talking about some positive themes is going to boost the morale up, because it's been kind of down this year. But being around you guys makes me happy. So yeah, I'm very excited to be back.
By chaotic and troubling times, you mean the loss to Radnički Niš today by your beloved Partizan?
Yeah, I don't speak about them. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's all right. Let's pretend it didn't happen then, okay? And of course, we're joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Luca as well. How you doing today, man?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. Just bracing for the cold that's coming here in DC, man. So I'm coming into my least favorite season, but hopefully a victory against Scotland is gonna make that all better, dude.
Yeah, hopefully that cold that's coming is not Joe Biden. So, and
for your long winter.
And Velimir from down under Australia. How you doing, Veli?
Gentlemen, are we not the greatest example of social distancing the world's ever seen? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, I swear to God, the World Health Organization should have us in a frame and say, "Be like these four." That's the only reason, but be like these four. You know what I mean?
Right. I agree, man.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of miles between us, right?
Then we just make it up as we go along. If we've got 20,000 followers on YouTube, that's almost as many people as I get to my Slava. So that's a really, really good number.
You haven't been to the Slava in Železnik then, because that number kind of goes up at that point. But if I ever have one, I'll have you come over, and then you'll see what the real number is.
I'm actually lucky that I know 5% of people who come to mine. So you know what I mean? Like, we're working on it every year.
Perfect. Right on.
There we go. All right, boys. So a lot of things to talk about this week. First, I know Alex wants to talk about. He was on the show last week, and I'm sure he wants to go over what he thought about the Norway game in the Nations League. So I'll give you a quick summary for you, Alex. Go ahead. Let's see what you thought.
Not hard to really say anything. I think it was legitimately our best performance that we've had probably since Germany in South Africa, which sounds crazy, but I really think if you kind of turn back the clock, because we've had good results in that period. You know, we've beaten Wales 6-1, and we've beaten, Ireland in Dublin, which was great. We beat Austria 3-2 in the qualifiers. We beat Costa Rica. We drew with Italy. So we've had good results since then, but in all those games it was kind of even. And I guess one part of the team wasn't working well, whether it was the attack that wasn't scoring goals, or the defense was crumbling, or maybe it was an even game, and in one moment it kind of changed. Against Norway, I think it was everything clicked from the start. The setup was fantastic. I think that Tumakovic is someone that I was very harsh on, but I think the way that he's adapted to this team and the way that he completely outclassed a very, very good manager. Lars Lagerbäck is kind of a European version of Boran Milutinovic in the sense that he's been with a lot of different teams and he's done very well with them. He took Nigeria to the World Cup. He did well with Sweden on multiple occasions. He made Iceland into a really good team. And he was doing well with Norway. They had like a 16, 17 match streak of not losing. And he completely dismantled him. He nullified Odegaard and Haaland, apart from the one chance that Haaland had off a corner, the way that we were able to use our wing backs, the way that the defense was so well organized, not allowing Haaland to get in behind with the pace. The distribution was on point. The pressure was on point. The Tadic and Juricic were everywhere. Mitrovic was winning every header. And if this team had just had a little bit more chemistry and a little bit more continuity, because we only started playing this formation, I think, in September, we would have probably won by more. It's a shame, because I was actually very fearful it was going to be another Australia the way it was going, because Mitrovic missed a chance, Juricic missed a chance, and it was kind of like, oh no, here we go again. But the subs were right on point. Milinkovic-Savic came on and I think showed that when you don't put all of the pressure of the world on him, he can be every bit as good as we know he can be. He's finally playing in his right position. I think that the discovery of players like Gude and Lazovic, Juric, I think, are the three guys that should have been in the team a long time ago, and they're guys that have been very harshly criticized by a lot of people. But they've proven that they're great. I think Lazovic is the most important guy in that team and was my man of the match. And we were fantastic. It was a pleasure and a privilege to watch. It made all those games in the Nations League and the qualifiers worth sitting through because we were so bad and so long. It was we weren't bad, but it was just frustrating because the potential was not being used. But it was fantastic, and I just wanted us to knock out Norway. I don't know if you saw the video they made a couple of days before the match, the whole spoof about them going to the Euros and stuff like that. I have nothing against them personally, but they're so irritating and just so unpleasing to see, and the way Holland and Odegaard were getting hyped up and the confidence that they were showing and the cockiness. I just wanted to see them shut down. So I'm really happy that we beat them, and not much to say. It was perfect. Everyone was fantastic.
Yeah.
So
I think that video that they made was something about Holland was going to eat us like cabbage rolls or something like that.
Yeah, and Stefan Mitrovic proceeded to eat him up like a dessert. So yeah,
exactly. Didn't
Alex,
really.
Alex, you really need to tell us how you feel, man. You know what I mean? Like you see that you're holding back there, and then buddy, let it all out. It's good for the soul.
Yeah, I mean, I was. To be fair, if I was to let out my feelings, it would just be muffled screaming of happiness for an hour, because that's what I had after the match. And I don't think it would make for entertaining content. Maybe it would, though. So who knows? But no, it was fantastic. It was so well done. I actually even started liking the kits, which I didn't think would be possible, because I said before I don't really like these kits. But I'm starting to enjoy them, and I think the whole cycle was really good. I think even the other two games were, apart from the Hungary game, which was a bit frustrating, but the only issue that I can kind of see is the fact that we don't really have depth in certain positions, and I think that might come back to bite us. And the only thing that I can really count as a negative during the whole three matches is the fact that Marko Grujic didn't get any minutes, and that some guys were maybe sent home a little bit too early in those three games, but everything was great. The Turkey game was really good. I mean, the Norway game, there's nothing else to say. I mean, I've tried to find negatives, and I really can't find any, apart from maybe Milivojevic's form, which has been disastrous since the start of the season. And you remember the goal that they scored was because he didn't close down, and he wouldn't even start, and he's barely played, which is very concerning for me, because I think he should be a starter. But apart from that, I think everything was great. The tactics were great. The approach was great. We were physically fantastic. It was amazing. It was top marks all around.
Yeah, I think Miloj just made his first start of the season for Crystal Palace against Fulham on Saturday. So maybe he'll get into some better shape and better form going into the next games, which should, I'm not sure if he'll play. I mean, now that we saw Gudes in great form, saw his performance in the Champions League against Chelsea, joint man of the match for Sevilla. So I think he's going to lock down his spot, and then. Maksimovic has been locked down his spot for a long time, and then Sasha Lukic now, who's coming on for club and country, so it might be hard for Milivoj to break into the starting lineup now. We have a lot of competition for those spots.
Yeah, but he's someone that we definitely need, and even if he's not a starter, I hope that he can get some serious minutes off the bench, because a guy with that kind of leadership and that kind of respect is probably the only other guy that's up to him in terms of that kind of respect in the locker room is probably Dusan Tadic. Now that Matic isn't there anymore, I think you need someone who can come in and who can hopefully get in form. And it wasn't just he didn't play well; he kind of looked out of it. He kind of looked sloppy and sluggish. But I have no doubt that he's going to come back on form. And I'm really, really happy. I can't really find any faults. This is what we have, and it's a shame we're going up against Scotland, because I really like them, and I have friends from Scotland too. But if we play like we did against Norway, we're going to crush them, no doubt about it. And usually my skepticism would come in and be like, oh, we're going to lose now, because it would be so typical of us to lose. But if we can play like we played in these 2 or 3 games, I think we're just going to crush them. And then we can bring on Croatia, which is going to be nice. So I'm looking forward to that.
Let's not get too ahead of ourselves there. And also, speaking of experienced players, more great news on the weekend as our boy Tony Rukavina came back from a 3-month injury.
Oh, man.
Played the 90 minutes for Astana, so maybe he'll be back in the squad for the playoff, and he'll be there to help us.
Isn't he like 103 years of age?
I think that's a conservative estimate, by the way.
Okay. But he's in top physical condition, so I can only dream of
Right.
He
only started.
Yeah, he's the Benjamin Button of our generation, so.
All right, let's talk about the game then against Scotland. They're riding high, unbeaten in 8 games. Scoring, the scrappy goals, set piece goals, doing what they do best. They don't play pretty; they play to win. So. Luca, what are you expecting in this game? What are your fears, and what are you most fearful of going into Scotland?
I'm most fearful of the first 70 or so minutes that we had against Norway, and we just repeat that against Scotland, and we don't score a goal even though we're creating 100% chances, like the Mitrovic in front of goal, a 1-on-1 with the keeper sliding attempt that went over the goal. And what I'm even more fearful of is we don't score for 70 plus minutes. We get a little bit tired, get sloppy on a counterattack. They catch us, and then, it's down 1-0, and we can't break them down for the last couple of minutes or so. Which, we've all seen Serbia. That's definitely within the realm of possibility. But I am extremely optimistic. I think we have no excuses going into this game. I think this one is one that we are obviously favorites to win, and that we 100% should win. And like I said, no excuses. Now, as far as the lineup, I would have to say that I've been giving this a lot of thought, and I would just say we start exactly like we did against Norway, make no changes. I was thinking maybe we take Juricic out, but because he's not a physical player per se, but his creativity will definitely come in handy in breaking down what is going to be a bunker defense by Scotland. And with our speed on the wings, I think we should be pretty good in breaking down their counterattacks as well. The only question is, do you start Milinkovic-Savic or do you not? And I would say bring him off the bench once again. But those would be my thoughts on Scotland, man. No excuses. We definitely should win, and I fully expect to win.
What about you, Ellie? What are your main fears or concerns going into that game? 2 weeks away, by the way. Time is flying.
It is. Gentlemen, before COVID-19 hit, I actually won an award here in Australia as the most boring person in Australia. All I ever did was travel the world, watch the Serbian national football team, basketball team, volleyball team, anywhere that we could go. And when I was really, really bored, I would go to Paris and watch Novak Djokovic play tennis. I just didn't think I was going to be bored 8 years in a row. So when COVID-19 hit, all of that stopped, and I discovered something called a podcast. So I've been listening to heaps of podcasts throughout the lockdown period. And believe it or not, gentlemen, I actually listened to the BBC Sports Sound, that's BBC Football Scotland, on a twice or three times a week basis. So I'll just provide a point of view of how they are thinking, as well as a quick input on what we need to do. When Scotland played Israel on the same night that Serbia played Norway, they openly said that was actually the worst football game in history. Do you know what I mean? That they were horrible and they got through on a penalty shootout. And interestingly, when the news that Serbia beat Norway came through on the same time, they were like, wow. Do you know what I mean? They actually, the commentary and ex-players said that Serbia were very strong, very formidable. They had a lot of the commentary that we were talking about on how Serbia dismantled Norway in that game, and they went, oh my God, we are not favourites of all. Now, they've been on a 8-game winning streak. 3 or 4 of them, they were playing against the Slovak under-16s, due to COVID-19. But even they admitted that one of those games, even though they were playing against the Czech, fourth or fifth side, that they got totally outplayed. But on the other hand, knowing that the last game against the Czech Republic, where they had a few more players back, they still won, and they are growing in confidence. They are growing in confidence for the fact is that they don't have any players of any particular note, that the 4 or 5 players that all are playing in, either for Celtic or Rangers or in the English Premier Leagues, all of them play at left back. So it's not like they can spread the talent around the team. But the only thing that I worry about with them is 2 things, and I've got a bit of an invested interest because, obviously living in Australia, they play with a short man, tall man formation up front. So the guy Fraser, who plays in Scotland, is the tall guy, and a guy named by Lyndon Dykes, who's recently transferred to Queen's Park Rangers. Lyndon Dykes was actually born in Australia. He lived in Queensland. He's trying to put on a Scottish accent to appease the journalists, and it's the worst Scottish accent in the world. He sounds like a pirate. And but the thing is Scotland will chase everything down. They will run, they will pull, they will scratch, they will sweat, they will elbow, they will do everything. And the only thing that I'm really fearful of is the fact that we might be unsettled by that, and especially if we start well and play well for little return, that could frustrate us and that could play into Scotland's hand. Do I believe that we're favourite? Yes, we are. Do we deserve to be favourite? Yes, we do. If we play with that high tempo that we did against Norway, we shouldn't have any troubles. But we're talking about Serbia here. You never know who's going to turn up on the night, and so I think the mentality will be our big thing. And Uncle Borgdar, we will go through. Alex, I've got to agree with you, brother. Like, I've actually been to 2 away Scotland games for various qualifiers in Europe, once against Poland, once against the Czech Republic, ironically, in Prague. They are the greatest supporters ever. And,
they're fantastic.
Let's hope that they will be sadly missed in Euro 2020, which will play in Euro 2021, or if not Euro 2022. And knowing Serbia's luck, we'll qualify, we'll do really, really well, and the tournament will get cancelled.
Yeah, well, I gotta agree with you guys. I love Scotland, and if we weren't playing in the playoff, I would be cheering for them 100%. I always cheer for them. Actually, they're just like a underdog, just like something about Scotland that's very endearing to like us Serbs. It's like the rebellious underdog. So it's like someone we always.
Hey, and you know what?
The fighting spirit.
They wear striker check. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when I was going to Prague and lining up to get my passport checked because, I'm wanted in about 17 different countries. And so they were checking my passport, and all these guys were lining up in kilts, and I swear to God, they wore the striker check with the peacock feather in it, and they looked absolutely unbelievable.
No, they're very it's like a charming, culture and country and team, and so it's very easy to cheer for. It's just unfortunate that we have to play them, and you bring up a lot of good points. They are, riding some confidence. They're chasing history. They haven't been this close to a major tournament in a very long time. They haven't had their fans this behind them in a very long time either, because now they see they're so close to qualifying for something. So this is. They're in a good spot, but I think we're in a good spot as well. I mean, I read a lot of comments, like Scottish fans saying that, it's better that they'll play us than Norway, which is, I don't agree at all. I think Norway has zero experience of making it to a major tournament, very little experienced players in the squad. I think overall we're a much more experienced and talented team than Norway, so I don't think their chances are any better against us than against Norway, because that team hasn't qualified for anything in 2 decades. And we were just at the World Cup, and we have a lot of experienced players that play at a very high level that have won a lot of trophies. I don't think the Norwegians have many players that have won trophies in big leagues. Their players are very young. They're probably going to get there in a couple of years, but, right now they're definitely not there. We're levels above them in terms of quality and experience. So I think, they'd be wrong to assume that we're the easier opponent. Of course, everybody knows our faults. Jekyll and Hyde, good one day, horrible the next 10 days. So, there's things that they're definitely should be looking forward to, because we can mess up versus anybody. We can mess up any day. We can commit a stupid red card or stupid penalty or stupid back pass error like we've seen a million times from our defenders. So I understand why they're feeling confident, but I also wouldn't be overly confident if I were them, because our team is very capable, as we've just shown against Norway, who let's face it, if you look at talent alone and form alone, they're way better than Scotland. So if we can dominate Norway for 120 minutes, I think we can do the same thing to Scotland, hopefully. Alex, so what are your main worries and concerns ahead of the game?
A couple. I think that to underrate Scotland's playing squad, I think would be a bit unfair, because I think there are some players that are actually, besides Andy Robertson and Kieran Tierney, I think that there are players who are there. David Marshall was excellent for Cardiff City when they were in the Premier League, but that was 5 years ago. They've lost Alan McGregor, who is a Rangers legend now. The center back situation for them is a bit muffled. They've actually forced Scott McTominay to come back to center back, which shows how desperate they're there. They have guys like Liam Cooper, who's in Leeds, who's not playing. They have some injuries in the other positions. James Forrest, who's the fantastic Celtic winger, has been forced to play wing back, and they're pretty weak there. But they also got players that I think are better than people think. I think their midfield is the one that I'm interested to see, because they've got John Fleck, who was great for Sheffield United last year. You remember Sheffield was one of the hits of the season last year, and he was great with Sander Berg, who also happens to be from Sheffield. They've got Armstrong from Celtic. They've got Ryan Jack, who's been fantastic for Steven Gerrard at Rangers. They've got a couple of guys, Tom Kearney, who's from Fulham. And going forward, Ryan Fraser seems to have found his form for Newcastle after legitimately just throwing a season away at Bournemouth. And they obviously managed to kind of have Robertson playing center back. So having that kind of a streak of 8 games unbeaten, you have to respect it. I mean, obviously you can't go out there and fear it, but you have to give them credit for them. And I understand their optimism, because they haven't been close to anything since 1998. I mean, that's the last time they were at a major tournament. So I get that. I think that from our perspective, it's a different type of setup, primarily because now we're the favorites, which I think has never suited us through our history. And you guys will know that through 10, 15, 20 years of watching. When we're kind of slight outsiders, we kind of have to play on the counter. We do well. Now we're the favorites. They're going to sit back and they're going to try to do to us what Norway did to us. I mean, they're pretty much playing the same formation. They went 3-5-2, or they went some variation of that. I hope that the pressure of the public won't be too large. I'm kind of hoping that fans aren't there, because I think that the pressure would be like, oh, you have to beat Scotland, and if we do, whoop-de-doo, and if we don't, then Armageddon's going to come down, and the fact that fans aren't going to be there is good for me. And taking our chances. I think the fact that Israel and Czech Republic didn't get results was very simple. Mate Vidra and Aaron Zahavi and other guys missed chances. Now, they did hold Israel's 3 best players, all forwards, Linus de Boer, Bieber Snappo, and Zahavi, to very limited chances, and they did well there. But it was a very defensive approach. And none of the guys that I mentioned that had chances against them have the strength and the confidence that Mitrovic has. Because the thing that I think is great about Mitrovic is the fact that even when he's not scoring goals, you saw in the Norway game, he wasn't playing that well in terms of scoring, but he was holding the ball up, he was a nuisance, he was jumping, he was getting in their faces, and he loves a challenge, and he's going to get them to that. And I think that Tadic and Juricic have more knowledge in their like one toe than all of them put together. So I think that taking chances is going to be crucial, and I think the primary thing is coming out immediately with a strong approach. The first 10 minutes, make it a bit of a fight. Go out and get in their faces, because that's what they're going to do, but show them that we have the capacity. If you want to go out and kind of rough us up, then we're ready to fight. And I think we have guys in Gudel and Tadic and others, and Maksimovic and Stefan Mitrovic, who are no-nonsense players, who can come out and who can do very well. And I think that the primary thing is just to come out with a sharp approach in terms of physically, and I think just take care of our chances. I think the rest should take care of itself. Don't do anything stupid defensively. That's the one thing which I'll end on that I thought was great against Norway, was when Haaland and Sorloth were coming to press us high. We knew that if they come in and take the ball away from us, we're screwed, because they have the pace and they have the strength to just like a locomotive burst on goal. So Mitrovic and Milenkovic and Kolarov knew to not play around with the ball. Don't try to carry the ball out. Pass it alongside. If you don't have anywhere to go, and punt it up high, because they're going to try to do that. Ben Fraser's going to try to do that. Lyndon Dykes is going to try to do that. Whoever they have in that second attacking position is going to do that. And considering our defenders, we saw against Hungary that if we are not careful, that even a average team, without some of its best players, can dispossess us. So I would say, don't do anything too risky, and allow your best players to create and take advantage of what you have. I think the matchup that I would be looking most forward to is the matchup on the left side, which I would force between Filip Kostic or Mikhailo Ristic, whoever comes back, which is what we saw against Norway, because Norway have a left back that isn't a professional and he's not playing anywhere, and Darko Lazic killed him on that side. The other side wasn't so good because they had El Abdellaoui, who's from Olympiacos, and he's very organized and he's their best defender. Same thing for Scotland now. They've got Tierney and Robertson left, but they don't have anyone right, and Filip Kostic or Mikhailo Ristic are tremendous. So I would definitely focus on that matchup, and I think that if we just use the things that I said, we should win comfortably. But I'm not going into it thinking we're going to smash them. I'm expecting it to be a very tough, competitive game, but I still think we're going to go through, and hopefully with a clean sheet, because I think that would boost our confidence.
I am very concerned about the favorites tag. I don't like that everybody thinks we're going to win. It's definitely not, we have very rarely done well with the favorites tag. We all know the history of our national team and how many times we drop points to teams that we should have beaten or teams that we're supposed to beat. So hopefully our players don't let that get to their heads. Hopefully they don't believe the hype. Hopefully they don't, listen to everybody saying that they're the best now that we dominated Norway and shut out Holland and put them in our pocket, etc., etc. All the stuff we're hearing on social media about how great we are now. It was one game, and we saw some other good things against Turkey and Hungary, but we need to stay grounded, keep working, and keep playing like we're the underdogs, because we were the big underdogs against Norway and we smashed them. So now that the tables are turned a bit and now we're the favorites, we need to keep that same attitude and not get complacent, because we can easily lose to Scotland. Us losing to Scotland would not be a surprise at all. And I think the main way they can beat us is if they frustrate Mitrovic, if they get under his skin, make him lose his temper, make him do some things that we've seen him do in the past. That's a good way for them to get ahead of us, as well as if they foul Tadic, if they they keep getting him to the ground, they unsettle his game. I think that's another way they can hurt us as well. I think if they do those two things, if they start getting under our skin, if they start frustrating us, constantly fouling, being more physical, that's going to be a long night for us, because that will slow down our play, it'll slow down our tempo, slow down our passing, it will limit all our options, and we'll start reverting to things like long balls or stop playing our passing game, and it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be a grinded out game. It'll probably go to penalties if that happens, right? So I think it'll be important to play our game, keep our cool, and not let stuff like that get us off balance or get us off centered and change our plan and our demeanor, because we need to be 100% focused and 100% ready for this game, and we can't fall for any of those tricks, which we've seen our teams fall for in the past. If we're honest, right? We've seen teams that were able to get us to get red cards, get us to go out of position or do stupid things. We've seen it a million times, and there's no reason why it won't happen again. But hopefully we learn from some of those mistakes, and hopefully this side's a bit different.
I think you hit on a good point there, brother. Like, one of the things that if we don't give them the ball, it will absolutely decrease their chances of scoring against us. So I think that's one thing that in our favour. If we can keep possession, if we can keep the ball, I think, we could get on top. The other thing is that we just can't concede set pieces, because I can assure you when their camp gets together, that's all they'll be practicing is set pieces. You know what I mean? Like off a corner, off a free kick, whatever it is, because they know that they could have an opportunity there. So I think as well, it's about defenders stay on their feet, keep possession of the ball. We should be okay, and obviously that pause was there for a reason. We should be okay.
Yeah, and if you look at our depth, we just have way more depth in our squad than they do. I mean, even if we're down a goal, look at who we can put in the game, right? We can put in Sergej Milinković-Savić, we can put in Luka Jovic, Dusan Vlahović, Sasha Lukic. We have a lot more options where we can find goals than Scotland does. They have a couple of guys that can score, scrappy guys on set pieces, and all that. But I think we have a lot more. If it gets to the later stages of the game, even if we're down, we can just throw in our other weapons off the bench. So we do have advantages and we are the favorites, but we need to be cautious because we don't want to, play into their hands and give them what they want and not lead to victory.
No doubt.
I would just point out one very quick thing on the set pieces thing. I think that we actually saw a very good example of how we can defend against them in the Norway game, because Lagerbäck is famous for having like 60 different types of set pieces, and you saw that they had 5 guys in the post running to the front post when they were doing corners and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And we actually handled that fairly well, apart from the Holland header, which really only came down to him being marked by Gullit, and he only got it because he was taller. In terms of them actually setting blocks and running in behind, we actually handled that pretty well. And I don't think Steve Clark has anywhere near as many tricks in the book. Their trick is going to be, we're just going to be bigger and stronger, which usually they are. But if there's any team that has the physical tools to match them in terms of our height, because we have guys that are 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", that can jump, I think that we can actually handle that. So I'm not as concerned about that. You have to respect it because it's their strongest weapon. But I think if anybody has the capacity to deal with it well, hopefully we can.
Right. So, I think my biggest thing about this game is that it's going to come down to concentration. You guys know, and we've seen it even in the Norway game. After the first Sergei Milinkovic-Savic goal, we just let Norman walk through our defense and score a shot from the other side of the 18-yard box, right? So if we can keep our wits about us, we can keep our mind in the game and not get frustrated and not let Scotland frustrate us, I think we're going to be just fine. But once again, it is Serbia, and we've seen these lapses over and over again, including the Turkey game, even though fatigue was an issue there as well. But if we can keep our mind in the game, I think we should be okay.
Yeah, and talking about our defense, right? We'll look at our boy Nikola Milenkovic. He's playing amazing. He's getting better every week.
Mm-hmm.
Had a big game on the weekend, so he's just maturing. He's a beast in the box. He scored 6 goals in Serie A in the last calendar year, which is more than any other defender, and he's still very young. So that's one thing that's in our favor. He's going to win a lot of headers against them. He's going to win a lot of headers in the box against them. He's going to win a lot of anytime they get a corner. Usually he's going to be there. Him or Mitrovic are going to be there to win those headers most of the time, right? So I'm confident with our. Look at what's going on in DC, man.
Is that's not me?
It must be some of the Scottish fans coming out and comments like blasphemy. They're coming out to take the house down.
Gentlemen, the only other thing that we've got to think about is I hope that all the players can stay safe and we don't have any players that are infected with COVID-19. So, boys, plenty of pasovi, plenty of kiseli kupus, rekni noraki svako ujutro, and hopefully that will keep things away, because that's another thing that could be in our favour. I know that the Scottish Premier League is littered with COVID-19 cases, and neither us. Okay, you three probably are smart enough to be epidemiologists, but I'm not, and we know that can all transfer in a split second, and it can ruffle or disrupt the side, and I don't think, for instance, if any of the two teams playing got a massive amount of cases, that UEFA would put it off. Ne daj Bože, but that's another thing that we need to look out for as well. So it's just a time to be in. So, Alex, so you're there, brother. Is there a likelihood that fans could be in the stadium or not really?
I think that the last thing that they mentioned was that UEFA might allow 30% attendance, because in the Norway game there was 200, 300 fans that were sitting, I think, in the eastern stands that the camera picked up. I think pretty much. They mentioned 30%, I think, but I've said before I would rather not have it. Obviously, the political situation here is such that all of a sudden we have 600, 700 cases a day. So, we might have another state of emergency or some kind of curfew or whatever. But I don't think that they're going to allow fans back in. And like I said before, I really wouldn't like to see fans back in because I think the pressure would come on, and I think it's something that they don't need. Because that's a part that a lot of times is overlooked, is that a lot of times a lot of pressure is put on the players, and a lot of the anger that people feel towards the national team a lot of times, which can't be justified, goes on their shoulders. It doesn't go on the shoulders of the people who run the thing. In this situation, if you don't have fans, I think that disappears. And also, if there's any national team that's used to playing without fan support or fans in general, it's us. So in that case, I would hope that they don't let fans in, and I don't think they will. And we'll see what happens.
We've had so many games with empty stands. It's nothing new for us, and I do as well hope that there's no fans in the stadium. We also don't need the players to be thinking about that, right? I mean, especially if their family members come to the game, they got to worry about that as well. But just no need for fans. Just keep it empty stands. Best for everybody's safety, best for the public as well. Cases are rising in Serbia and all across Europe, so there's no need to risk anything. And as well, I think, as Velimir mentioned, just hope that our players stay safe. We avoid outbreaks, they avoid going out in public as much as they can. And there's 2 weeks left, so don't want to take any unnecessary risk or go to a necessary party or a necessary birthday or another celebration and get the virus. Wouldn't be the best thing, especially you see all these cases now in Italy again. We got a lot of key players there. I think they need to stay inside like everybody else, unfortunately. Let's switch gears a bit. This, I know it's been heavy with the national team talk, but also the Europa League started. And Cerveza started the Europa League in Germany against Hoffenheim. I thought they lost, of course, 2-0. Most people, I think, expected a loss, but I think it was actually a pretty positive performance. Created a couple chances. They weren't totally dominated. Could have gotten a draw there and missed some chances as well. Luka, what did you see in that game?
Yeah, man, like you said, I thought it was actually a very positive performance. Even though, we got the L, I thought we played pretty well. And I thought we were on par with Hoffenheim for most of the game. And honestly, it should have been, 1-0. Or even you could have made the case for, a tie game. I thought we played that well. I will say I'm a big fan of Falcinelli up top, the Italian striker for Zvezda. I think he's going to be a pretty big star for Zvezda. I like the way he plays. I like the technicality. I like the runs that he makes. He's a real nuisance there for the defense. And I couldn't help but thinking while I was watching the game, I was like, man, I wish we had somebody like a Marco Marin on the team again that could feed those balls into Falcinelli while he's making those runs, because that would be pretty nice to see. I know we have Katai, but I do believe that Marin was a better passer of the ball anyways. But overall, I thought that the game was very positive. I'm actually now very much looking forward to the next couple of games for Zvezda, and I think we have a real shot, if we can play like we did against Hoffenheim, to be perhaps second in this group and make it to the knockout stages.
Billy, what did you see?
Listen, when you just said that, Luka, I think we guys would all agree that the Europa League is the standard for a Serbian club in Europe. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Ideally, what we would like to see is the fact is that one of our clubs make the Champions League, take all the money, finish third, and then go into the Europa League, going into the next year. Because we were not inferior to Hoffenheim, but you could just tell the Hoffenheim, any club in the Bundesliga are just more used to playing with that intensity every week. It happened last year, Zvezda played Partizan in one of the derbies before a big European game, and I thought that would be a really good, not a training drill, but just a good acclimatization to an increase in intensity, of which they would need to look forward to in their next European game. But the thing is we, like any Serbian club, with Zvezda, Partizan, Bačka Palanka, I just love saying that name, and when they play in Europe, we play on emotion for the first 60 or 70 minutes, to get ourselves up, to match them with that intensity, while if we play against opposition in the top 5 leagues of Europe, they are used to that intensity every week. So it's something for us to somehow either get used to or maintain the concentration level, for 100 minutes, just to be safe, then rather than 90. So I think it's just the level we're at. I don't think anybody's surprised that we lost against Hoffenheim. I thought the performance was good, but in 100 years, people are going to read that Hoffenheim beat Zvezda 2-0. It's just ironic that we are praying that there are no fans to watch the Serbian national team, but on the other hand, Zvezda will miss the fans. You know what I mean? Like, the fact is that when you're playing on a big European night, Zvezda rely on that, 60, 70,000 people making noise at like that there's 300,000 people there. And that goes for Partizan, that goes for Čukarički, that goes for anything else. I just love saying that name too. And then that's the part where we will sadly miss that. So, we should put in a fantastic performance and get a result against Slovan Liberec this week. If we started the campaign and said, okay, we're going to lose against the team from the Bundesliga, I think we just would have taken that and we would have managed the rest of the group stages. So, there was some good signs again. I'm just so happy that we kept Milos Deganek at the back, and although we always run a risk of losing, like Zvezda losing players, just like Partizan or any other Serbian club. Continuity is something that we can hope for, and if we can get on some type of run of good performances, I think it will do our confidence world of good.
You're 100% right about the fans. I think no fans is a huge hit for Zvezda. They increased the level of play at home, by at least 30%. I feel like in a lot of those games, they just have a special effect on the player to lift them, and it's a big loss for them not to have them in the Europa League, because it's not the same. Let's face it, it's not the same at all for Zvezda without fans. Even away games, we've seen the support they have. So both home and away, it's a big hit. And Alex, I know you're still mourning the loss by your beloved Partizan today, and as well as the end of the Stanojevic honeymoon period. So I hate to ask you, your comment on Zvezda in Europe.
No, not at all. I'm not like that. No, in all seriousness, I look to see that if the Serbian champion's playing in Europe, it gets us coefficient points. So I can at least bring myself to that excuse to root for a team, even though I find it kind of hard. But I think the performance was fine. The fact that it was a new formation, I think, was very important. It was a 3 at the back, which they haven't used since the derby. I also like to correct Velimir on it that the derby he was referring to was the one on September 22nd last year, which was after they played Bayern Munich and before they played Olympiacos. Right. So it was a drastic change of intensity. But the fact that you didn't have Ivanic, who's probably been the best player this year in terms of form, he's clearly rebounded in the Stankovic system. Katai was clearly kind of questionable. Ben had a knock. Kanga isn't there, which I actually consider to be an upgrade because I think the guy wastes too many passes. But it was a decent performance. Hoffenheim is a really, really, really good team. I mean, if you can beat Bayern Munich 4-1, no matter the circumstances, you're pretty good. And they didn't have Kramaric, and they can bring in Nunes de Boer. They don't have Kaderabek, their right back. They can bring in Ryan Sessegnon. So they're clearly well scouted. They're well managed. I think the lineup was fine. I think that some of the good performances I would point out, I would agree on Falcinelli. I was very critical of him because I saw a guy from Serie B who scored like 4 goals in his in like the last couple of years. I thought was going to be a bad signing, but he clearly knows how to move. He knows how to hold the ball up. Whereas I thought Tamani was going to be really good considering his CV, and he turned out to be bad. So it shows how much I know, right? But in regards to the other things, Sanogo was excellent. I think that he's probably the closest thing that Zvezda have had to a Segundo Castillo or a Mitchell Donald. He's that all-around defensive midfielder who can get the ball. They limited Hoffenheim. Hoffenheim had a couple chances. They took advantage. The two things that annoyed me, first of all, definitely was the first goal that was conceded.
Right.
Because it was after a potential foul on Veljko Nikolic, which live, it didn't look like a foul to me. And they're complaining about it. And they're still complaining about it because they're used to getting that call in the domestic league. And by the time that they stopped complaining, Hoffenheim had gone on a counterattack and the ball's in the back of the net. And it annoys me, not because it happens, but because it's had that happen to them before. If you remember, against PSG in the first Champions League game, it was the last game of the first Champions League campaign. The first goal PSG scored, Popkov gets fouled on the halfway line, which that was a foul, but still, the referee doesn't give him the call. All the players are hopping on the referee's back. And by the time they get back to focus, the ball comes to Mbappe, he gives it to Neymar, he gives it to Cavani, it's a goal. And the game's over from that point on because PSG takes the lead in the first 10 minutes. It's like, I would understand it. Yeah, go ahead.
Alex, sorry, man, because just in that exactly same point on which I 1,000,000,000% agree with you. So that I reckon sometimes that's a consequence of a Serbian club playing in the Serbian League. If a decision or a call doesn't go your way, you might take it up a little bit longer with the referee, which we are used to in the Superliga, and in a European competition, they get on with it quicker. So, like, I remember that Pavlov incident like it was yesterday, and exactly that. So I absolutely agree with you in that incident against Hoffenheim. I think we just need to get on with it every now and then. Do you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. And the first thing you learn. That's the first thing that you learn. Is the thing that's frustrating about this is the fact that I would understand if it's your first season playing, but they've been playing in Europe for 4 years now.
Right.
So there's no real excuse to say, like, well, you're not used to it, different tempo and all that. Like, you should be used to it. And I think that's unfortunately a consequence of how the league is structured, but there's nothing really you can do about it. I think that the other point I'd like to make is I think that the kids that Stankovic was hoping to bring through, I think Erakovic was fine in some moments, but inconsistent in others. But he's a young kid. He's going to learn, hopefully. The issues in terms of the squad selection, you only have one defensive midfielder in Sanogo. You have nobody else who can take that spot because Vulic is gone. Nikos Petrovic can't play there. Veljko Nikolic was the big one. Very frustrating, very disappointing, because I think I've never seen the hype in him, but he clearly looked discombobulated and out of form. I think some of the substitutions as well, the fact that he persists with Vukanovic, doesn't give Pavkov the minutes I think he should get. So there's some things to look forward that I think need to be fixed. But it is Hoffenheim. Like I said, they're an excellent team. And I think it's not a game that you realistically have to win. I think the game against Liberec and the game against Ghent, which is really what Serbian clubs should focus on. Try and beat the opponents. They're there or thereabout. If you can punch above your weight, great. If you can't, it's fine. I suspect Ghent and Liberec are also going to struggle. And those are the games that I think Zvezda should focus on winning. But I think that they could have done a better job in the transfer window. I think that the mismanaging of the money from the previous Champions Leagues came back to bite them now because they should have had enough money to get proper wingbacks, because it was kind of frustrating to watch Rodic and Gajic, who don't have neither the physical ability nor the technical and tactical know-how to play wingback. You could tell that they were gassed and out of it by the 70th minute, and if they would have been able to manage their money better, they could have found somebody. The lack of options in midfield. But I think it was a better performance than I expected. The formation worked decently well. And I think Liberec is the one that they absolutely should win. If they can't beat Liberec, I think that any hope of them trying to get out of the group is for naught.
Agreed.
Alexa, are you possibly saying that a Serbian club or organisation mismanaged money? I can't believe
it. I know.
No way.
That's not possible.
Great points by you guys about great points by you guys about complaining after a foul. I think we all see it in the Serbian league. Every time there's like a controversial foul, or even a not controversial foul, there's like a 3-minute gathering around the referee. Everybody's yelling, everybody's grabbing each other. Like, you can't, it's not serious. I mean, you can't do that in Europe. It's not ever going to, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but, you can't do that all the time. And you're right. The first thing you learn when you're playing as a young player anyways is play until the whistle. And, I don't understand why you're stopping to complain when the game's still going on. It doesn't matter. You talk about that later. The coach can talk about that later to the ref or the linesman on the sideline. You don't decide it on the field and leave your team out of position and vulnerable to getting a goal. But I think you guys are right. Positive performance, disappointing result, but I think they still have a good chance of finishing ahead of the other two clubs in the group, and that's the main thing. As long as they can get through the group stage and into the knockout rounds, it's a great success. We've seen some positives. I think it's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde as a season so far. Disappointing in Europe, pretty good in the Serbian league, but that doesn't mean much. It's hard to judge those results. We saw the derby; they were okay. They created a couple good chances. I mean, they had more possession, but I don't think they were great against Partizan. And all that talk about dominance, dominating the derby, like that's so funny. Like, anybody that watched that game, if you think that Zvezda dominated, you don't know football. I mean, I think they were slightly better, but you can clearly see during that game that Partizan was frustrating them a lot. That they had a lot of problems with the midfield of Partizan in that game. And if that's dominating, then I guess we just don't watch the same football. Right?
Yeah, they were frustrating me too, but that's for another time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Partizan doesn't have.
I just love the sponsor's name for the Superliga, the Linglong Superliga.
Beautiful.
I laugh my head off every single time I hear that. Fantastic.
It's appropriate that there's a tire sponsor because we get tired of watching the game. So
but yeah, I think the main problem for Partizan is no striker. You saw that today as well.
We have nothing. Our problem is we don't have anything. No striker, no nothing. It's kind of a different thing, but we'll talk about that at another time. Right now, we don't have another 3 hours for me to rant.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're gonna. Yeah, I think that's gonna be enough for this week's episode. Thank you everyone for listening. Of course, follow us on Twitter at Serbian Footy. Subscribe on YouTube at the Serbian Football Show, and also follow us on SoundCloud for the audio version at the Serbian Football Show as well. If you have any questions or any topics that you want us to discuss next week, just shoot us a tweet and we'll talk about it. Otherwise, everybody take care. Have a good night.
See you, man. Pleasure.
Bye.